Welcome back to another amazing episode of Celeb Village. It is not uncommon for a person to experience unspeakable and tragic horrors before they are an adult. Childhood is a vulnerable time that can lead to children being susceptible to abuse and violence because they cannot defend themselves. Celebrities are not immune to adverse childhood experiences. Sadly, many stars report having rough childhoods. Some use it as their drive for success, while others feel like these traumas are holding them back. Here are 15 celebrities who had tragic childhood experiences. Number 15. Ray Charles. The legendary singer was the child of Aretha Robinson, who became pregnant at 15 years old by her adoptive father, Bailey Robinson. The scandal forced her to flee town, and she raised Charles with the help of Bailey's wife. Charles grew up in poverty and, at times, lived in a local cafe. When he was 5 years old, Charles lost his younger brother George in a drowning accident. Also, around this time, he started losing his sight. His mother died when he was 14, and the grieving Charles dropped out of school to make a living as a professional musician. It was hard at first, but the work paid off, and he eventually became one of the most respected names in music. Number 14. Jim Carrey. Nowadays, Jim Carrey is renowned as one of the greatest comedic actors of his generation, and he has the wealth to go with it. But his early life was a completely different story. Carrey was raised in the Greater Toronto area of Ontario, Canada, and his family became homeless while he was attending high school. At one point, Carrey lived in a tent with his older brother, which they pitched in a public park on the shore of Lake Ontario. Luckily, the family's financial situation eventually improved, and Carrey found work doing stand-up in Toronto. He moved to Hollywood in 1983, and the rest is history. Number 13. Jay-Z. Born Sean Carter, Jay-Z is one of the most successful artists in the history of music, selling 140 million records and being inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. As a child, Carter was raised in a Brooklyn housing project known as the Marcy Houses. His father left the family when Carter was young. At 12 years old, he shot his own older brother, who had a drug addiction, in the shoulder for stealing his ring. As a teenager, the future rapper sold drugs and was shot at on more than one occasion. Jay-Z later founded his own Rockefeller Records, and it was through this label that he released his acclaimed debut album, Reasonable Doubt. Number 12. Corey Feldman. A prominent teen actor of the 1980s, Corey Feldman enjoyed incredible popularity thanks to movies like Stand By Me and The Lost Boys. He and his close friend, Corey Haim, became known as the Two Coreys, appearing in a string of films together. However, drug use saw both their careers begin to crumble. Feldman has alleged that he suffered abuse from his mother, which she denies, and sexual abuse from figures in the entertainment industry. More recently, in 2020, he became the subject of sexual misconduct complaints himself. Number 11. Kelsey Grammer. One of television's most acclaimed actors, Kelsey Grammer suffered numerous tragedies growing up. After the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, social earnest swept across the United States. Grammer's father was killed by an anti-white cab driver. Grammer was just 13 at the time. This came just 1 year after the death of his grandfather, who passed away from cancer. In 1975, Grammer's sister, Karen, was kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered, plunging Grammer into depression. He would later cite this depression as a catalyst for substance abuse. 5 years after the death of his sister, Grammer's half-brother died while scuba diving. Grammer went on to name his daughter Spencer Karen after his late sister. Number 10. DMX. As a child, Earl Simon suffered asthma attacks that often left him in the emergency room. His father left when he was young, and his mother and her boyfriends would often beat him. It got so bad that at 14, he would sleep on the streets in clothing bins. It was also around this time that he was tricked into smoking a joint laced with a much harder drug, and developed an addiction. While in prison for carjacking, he worked on lyrics and upon release sold his own mixtapes under the name DMX. Sadly, he battled addiction throughout his life and died of cardiac arrest at the age of 50. Number 9. Nicki Minaj. Onika Minaj was born in Trinidad and Tobago in 1982, but primarily raised in Queens, New York. Her mother, Carol, moved to the U.S. to attend college and eventually brought Mirage and her older brother to live with her and her father, Robert. Robert had substance abuse issues and a violent temper and would hit Carol and his children. When Mirage was 5, he burned down their house with Carol inside. Fortunately, she escaped. Onika Mirage later adopted the stage name Nicki Minaj and became a world-famous pop star. Number 8. Eminem. This famous rapper often raps about the difficulty he had during his childhood. Not very many people are willing to speak about their rough childhoods like Eminem is. His troubled lifestyle is detailed in his memoir and in his songs. He grew up poor and shared a trailer with his caregivers. He endured domestic abuse and bullying. Despite these hardships, he has become a very successful musician today. Number 7. Drew Barrymore. The details of Drew Barrymore's childhood are almost common knowledge now. Due to her mother's fame, she was often at nightclubs in her teens. This led to an early exposure to drugs that made her childhood tragic. She plans to share the history of her childhood with her children and do her best to give them a better childhood than she had. Number 6. Mark Wahlberg. This legendary actor did not have an easy growing up. He had a really rough and sad childhood filled with hardships and heartbreak. It led to him being standoffish and aggressive in his adulthood. Despite his experience, he wants to be a good dad and give his kids the life he never had. Number 5. Shia LaBeouf. This actor's success overshadows a tragic childhood backstory. He grew up with his family in poverty and could barely make ends meet. They traveled a lot and sold hot dogs to try to put food on the table. Despite the disadvantages LaBeouf grew up with, he went to AA meetings with his dad and performed stand-up comedy in pursuit of a better life. Number 4. Albert Einstein. Being a genius does not make you immune to the horrors of the world in childhood. Often seen as one of the smartest people of all time, Einstein did not have an easy way through childhood. His brains may have even caused some of his struggles. He was rebellious and had quirks that actually got him kicked out of school. Number 3. Ashley Judd. This legendary actress is a trailblazer in Hollywood. She is highly successful, and it is made evident by her many Golden Globe nominations. Her success is even more impressive considering her tragic childhood. She was abused repeatedly and was left alone often. Her pursuit of the limelight was her main priority, and she pushed through her struggles and pain to get there. Number 2. Oprah Winfrey. The talk show host is one of the most successful and most wealthy people in Hollywood, and even in the whole world. She is a household name, and she created her reality for herself. Despite her childhood traumas, she was sexually and physically abused growing up, and she had to make herself bigger to protect herself, and that's exactly what she did. Number 1. Tyler Perry. As one of the most highly regarded filmmakers of the 21st century, it may surprise you that Tyler Perry had a really difficult childhood. He has said that he never felt safe as a child due to the repeated sexual and physical abuse he endured. He often disassociated to escape the horrors of his reality as a child. It makes one wonder if that is where his inspiration for his horror films comes from. So guys, this was all about today's video. Share as much as you can. That really motivates us to create more content for you guys. With this, we end our video. Hope you liked the video. Do hit the like button down there, comment down your views, and do share with more of your friends. See ya. Take care.